Tear.
Tear.
Tear, yeah. Tear. Same thing, right? That works.
That's where I can't play no games.
That works.
Just don't forget to pick up your stencil.
Vita.
The thing you got is good.
Yay. Here.
Yay, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death.
I don't think that's an X.
Year.
It's because I didn't put it in my pocket like you.
Crate.
Great.
Cave.
What are we supposed to be doing?
Doing letters.
Making words.
Supposed to be making words. Cavity, really? Oh my gosh. Dentist you.
Or
Trace.
Maybe that's
You read a lot. That's why you can get these. You read a lot.
I was telling Dylan, this is what I do for fun.
Treating.
Oh, yeah.
Lewis just laughed, rattling them off. Boom, boom, boom.
Oh, is this your bell ringer? This your warm-up bell ringer activity?
There you go. Vertical? It's not up there.
There's no L.
Yeah.
Say, if it wasn't so L, would have.
Veracity.
Veracity, yep. You'd be like the only one to get that word. I had to look up very. It's like, okay.
I'm a little worried.
They're 94.
Really?
Oh, no, she told him that.
Told him that. And one of them's an anagram. You can rearrange all those letters and get a different word. If you figure it out at the same time.
Is that extra?
Recognition. You got it? The anagram?
That's fine, yes. It's laying right there with the big envelope. Oh, I got the
Bill, 2 minutes.
Welcome. We're so glad to have you here this evening. I'm Allison Jablonski. I'm the Provost and VP for Academic Affairs. And I want to acknowledge the Monacan Indian Nation as traditional stewards of the land on which the University of Lynchburg now sits. And we offer our respect to the Monacan people, past, present, and emerging. The University Lecture Series that we're hosting tonight began in 2018, and it features scholars and experts from the University of Lynchburg and celebrates their roles as educators, mentors, and researchers who make an impact on our campus and well beyond. We invite our entire campus community as well as the general public to come and learn from their fascinating insights. This evening, we are grateful to welcome Dr. Cynthia B. Ramsey, who is a professor of music. Dr. Ramsey earned her Doctor of Musical Arts in Music Education and her Master of Music Education degrees from Shenandoah Conservatory in Winchester, Virginia, and her Bachelor of Music Education degree from James Madison University in Harrisonburg. Currently, she teaches undergraduate courses in conducting, music history, research methods, music education, and music theory. In addition to her duties as the chair of the music department and program director for music education, she maintains a piano studio, and she is well known for encouraging student research. She was the 2022 recipient of the Faculty Award for Excellence in Research Mentoring, and for her many service projects on behalf of the university and the Lynchburg community, she was awarded the 2019 Elsie Irvin Bach Award for Excellence in Citizenship. Under her leadership, the music education program at the university has been recognized as the National Collegiate Chapter of Excellence for both professional development in 2021 and for service learning in 2018. An avid scholar and educator, Dr. Ramsey was named to the inaugural class of the University of Lynchburg Teaching Fellows.
You were too.
I was too. We served together
We did.
3 years. Her research in the field of creativity won the International Society of Exploring Teaching and Learning Distinguished Fellows Outstanding Presentation Award. Her scholarly resume includes presentations in Virginia, Atlanta, Las Vegas, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Oregon, and internationally in Germany, British Columbia, and the Royal Academy of Music in London, England. And I just want to remind Dr. Ramsey that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
It does. So what happens in here stays in here, right?
Well, no, no, we want to spread it all over. And in the words of the immortal Beethoven, let us all do what is right, strive with all our might toward the unattainable, develop as fully as we can the gifts God has given us, and never stop learning. Please welcome to the podium, Dr. Ramsey.
Thank you, Dr. Jablonski, and everybody welcome. So we started our evening in typical education form with a warm-up activity, right? So for this warm-up activity, you had the opportunity to stand and to think about how many words can you make with the letter C-R-E-A-T-I-V-I-T-Y. Okay, share with your neighbors the list, and if that's a name of a word that you didn't have, keep it in your brain. Go, you get a minute. Hey, Lewis, go over to Dr. Tyner, have a discussion with her. She doesn't have a friend, so be her friend. Okay, so what's the word? What is the new word that you learned from your friends? Go. Good. Reactivity. That is the anagram word. That's like double extra credit points for that one. You're welcome. What else? Treat. Go ahead. Really, just 3 extra words? Thank you. Anybody else? Everybody should have one word.
Rice.
Thank you. There you go. So I call this activity synergy and collaboration because the fact of the matter is when 2 or more people work together and share ideas, the result is greater than any one person could produce. So my thesis statement, enhancing one's creative abilities, has been at the heart of a liberal arts education for a very long time. And so tonight we're going to talk about the need for creativity, barriers for creativity. Let's look at some definitions. Let's explore the notion that all people are creative. Can creativity be taught, developed, and what does that really look like? And then I'm going to identify some techniques that can be implemented on the go. All of that in an hour. Here we go. I talk fast, right? All right. So, the need for creativity. You guys have probably noticed that creativity has become a buzzword. It is all over the place. And so I decided to see what all over the place means. So I Googled the word creativity. And how many hits do you think I got? An astounding 1.2 billion with a B. That's what I said. And then I said, let's narrow that to creativity in music education. And now that number is still an astounding over 200 million. So when I look at all the different presentations on creativity that are going on and the billions of resources, there's no way anybody's going to copy anybody, right? So traditionally, we know that creativity has been associated with the arts. And this is believed to have first appeared in the 14th century with the literary work, The Canterbury Tales. But there is realization that creativity can be found across all subject areas, medicine to business, education to agriculture, history, and of course the arts. So let's consider that job market. It is no surprise that the workforce sees innovation and creativity as an essential skill in our global economy. But here's something you might find surprising. Approximately 2/3 of today's young people are going to enter the workforce in jobs that don't yet exist. Think about that. There are many jobs here currently in demand that 10 years ago didn't exist, like driverless car engineer, podcast producer, cloud architect, TikTok marketer, social media influencer, online dating profile manager, e-sports gaming coach, and one that I've experienced, the telemedicine physician. Yes, talking to a robot computer, seeing the doctor through the computer screen. But I provided this comment for our consideration. We are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist using technologies that have not been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know we have, right? And so, in this rapidly changing world, creativity and creative thinking have to become a priority in our education system. And this monumental challenge requires me and my colleagues to cultivate 4 skills: imagination, self-discipline, motivation, resiliency, and collaboration. But everybody, we have a problem. The cultivation of creativity is experiencing numerous barriers. So take a look at the findings of this 2012 Adobe study on the global creativity graph. And I want to highlight 3 facts specifically as you look through that. Number 1, 8 in 10 people feel that unlocking creativity is critical to economic growth. Number 2, nearly 2/3 of the respondents felt creativity is valuable in the society. And number 3, and most concerning, yet a striking minority, only 1 in 4 people, or 25%, believe they are living up to their own creative potential. Robert Sternberg in 2010 contended that one of the greatest problems facing our colleges today can be traced back to our education system and the notion of what it's like to be intelligent. The No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 propelled our nation into an increasing reliance on those standardized tests. You know, the exams with the one right answer, the memorized right answer, teaching to the test, Virginia Standards of Learning, all of those advanced placement exams, all of that, teaching towards the test. Another barrier is our resistance to change. My quote, change is constant, but our growth is optional. And then number 4, a lot of people believe the statement that says, you know, I'm just not creative. I don't think so. In 2013, Berlin asked both parents and educators, what do you believe is the greatest barrier to teaching creativity? And this histogram reveals that approximately 25% of both teachers and parents identify an educational system too reliant on testing and assessment. But then as you look at the other barriers, we have 2 more that identify curriculum issues, a lack of resources, and then professors and teachers just feel like they're not equipped. They have a lack of experience. And so, what is this concept that we're so afraid of? Here are just a few examples. Beginning with Albert Einstein, who says, creativity is intelligence, having fun. Of course he'd say that, right? The fields of psychology and education have only recently embraced the serious study of creativity in the mid-20th century. And within the last 60 years, creative research has focused on theories that have identified stages of development or criteria exhibited in these specific domains. So let's take a look at a few of those. Paul Torrance dedicated his lifetime to the advancement of creativity in education. And yet he faced opposition in his day as about the nature of creativity. And why is that? Because during his time, creativity was considered to be an immeasurable, natural ability. And he challenged that notion and proposed that all students are creative. Very much similar to my claim that says all students are musical. Torrance advocated that creativity was a specific skill. This skill can be taught. And his life's work led to 3 things: the development of the Torrance test of creative thinking, the development of incubation theory of teaching and learning, and number 3, the creation and establishment of gifted and talented programs throughout the world. Take a look at this video.
Since the 1950s, a tremendous amount of knowledge has been generated about how we can teach and cultivate the characteristics we associate with creativity. A creativity scholar named E. Paul Torrance is not only credited with identifying many of our creative characteristics, but also instructional approaches that have been used to successfully teach creativity. His most famous, the Torrance incubation model of teaching and learning, is designed to teach creativity while teaching the content.
One of the breakthroughs in the field of creativity, if you look at the fact that you can teach for creativity while you teach another content, that took it to a different level. Because
what's unique about the Torrance incubation model is the fact that teachers are always saying, I don't have time, and they don't. So how is it that we could integrate creativity into our daily practice in education to teach our content and teach for creativity?
Called TIM for short, this instructional approach not only identifies a content goal for a lesson, but also a creativity goal from the skill set that Torrance identified. This creativity goal is then integrated into 3 distinct components that are used to structure the lesson and deliver its content.
It's one of the few models that allows for the integration of creativity into whatever you're teaching, so that you teach what you teach well, and you teach it better because you are teaching creativity.
Fast forward to 1984. Howard Gardner's research study entitled Frames of Mind established creativity as the ability to use different modes of thought. He determined that creative development could be found in at least 7 distinct capabilities. There's logical, linguistic, spatial, body kinesthetics, interpersonal, interpersonal, and my favorite, musical. But it's really important for us to realize that no one intelligence is intrinsically creative, and it requires honing in on one or more of these processes at a very high degree. Isaacson and Murdoch state that creativity results in a product perceived as new and useful. I think we all get that. Pieces of writing, books, physical creations, robots, arts, theory, drama, music, etc., inventions, technology, the list goes on and on. But we're going to fast forward another 20 years and get to Cameron, who sees creativity as the act of seeing things that everybody around us sees while making connections that no one else makes. Looking at things in a different way. Moving from what we know to something that is unknown. And so, some of you already know this, don't blow it. I want to introduce to you Lindsay Pollock and the carrot clarinet.
A really good definition that I like of creativity is the putting together of 2 previously unrelated things, could be objects or ideas, and creating something new. So I'm going to take a carrot and a saxophone mouthpiece, and I'm going to give you a very quick demonstration on how to make your own instrument. Because I think the thing we forget is we tend, crazy because music is such a communal activity, but we tend to leave music in the hands of the experts, and all of us consume music. But you yourselves can become carrot clarinet players very easily. So you need a kitchen knife. I'm going to cut off the end of the carrot. And markings for 6 finger holes down the front. So I'm just using the tip of this. Okay, so that's 6 finger holes and 1 thumb hole on the back.
This is a blog for my music appreciation class. And so in this particular assignment, I asked them, use your imagination, design an unconventional instrument, give it a title, describe the materials it's made of, and the types of sounds it's going to make. Their creativity is somewhat astounding. Now that is obviously the first one on the list. That's the toilet paper pipe, the TP pipe. But we got metal sticks and horseshoe triangles, rubber glove bagpipes, that was an interesting one. A guitar aruba, one of my favorite, the toothpickaphone. Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of more. I always like that particular exercise. So now we get to the review, just remembering that Paul Torrance established creativity as a human quality that exists in all of us. And I went as far to add musicality exists in all of us as well. And while we can't all be like Beethoven or Da Vinci or Einstein, we can all enjoy creative activities. These often are cultivated in our hobbies of painting and dancing and writing and playing instruments, singing in the choir, singing in the shower, right? Our finished pieces may not be comparable to the likes of our great masters, but these processes are therapeutic, and they end in a result that can be aesthetically pleasing. One of our top of our hobbies and our interests, we all have creative attributes that help us solve life's problems. I call these are known as personal, everyday creativity. This type of creativity enables us to plan different routes to get to the same place. And that might not sound very creative to you, but it does rely on our ability to consider options. Okay, audience participation. It's time to take a look and see how this develops in real time. So Lewis is going to turn the lights up, and I am going to need a volunteer. Don't everybody raise your hand at once, or it's going to come from volunteer to voluntold. Okay, I'm voluntolding. All right, Dr. Jablonski, here you go. Voluntold. Give her some encouragement, everybody. It's good for you, remember? So while she's coming up, you can go, yeah, go. Either way. While she's coming up, we want to practice our part because you're not getting off that easy. Here it is. Here's your part. It goes like this. 1, 2, ready, go. One more time and go. So I'm going to do a call and response. I'm going to do something for 2 measures, and then you're going to do what? All right, so it's me, 2, 3, 4. It's me, 2, 3, 4. We're going to do that 3 times. Me, 2, 3, 4. Me, 2, 3, 4. And now I get to do it again. 2, 3, 4. Me, 2, 3, 4. Excellent. Make sure it's good and loud and proud. Have a seat. This is Betty. Betty, this is ours. You got to slide over because we're going to show the bench. Okay. All right. You get C. Do you know where C is? Which one? Be creative. There it is. All right. So I'm going to play a 12 bar flute. They're going to clap. Bump, 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 bump. Can you do that with them on your C? 1, 2, ready, go. That's right. You can play in measures 1 and 2, anything you want with your C.
Okay.
What are you doing on measures 3 and 4? Okay. Here we go. A 1, 2, a 1, 2. Here we go. Creativity. You guys did great too, as a matter of fact. Now, you got the right rhythm. You don't have to keep playing it like that or doing it like that. You can be a tapper, a hisser, a snapper, a clapper, a sander, a patter, a stomper. Pick a body part. You're now in my body band. Pick your favorite body part. Now, Dr. Jablonski, let's consider, do you have to play the same C's in the same place?
No.
Can you pick different C's? Can you show me a bunch of different C's? Sure. Don't get in my space, though. I'm good. Yeah. So you can use all of those.
Yep. Okay.
Anything you want. You guys are my body band. Here we go. Take 2. 1, 2. 1, 2. Here we go. Congratulations. Good job. And good job to you. See, you're all musical and you were all creative. Now, so our question now becomes, can creativity be taught? Can creativity be developed? And what's that really look like? And so creativity comes in 4, I look at it in 4 steps. First step, preparation. It's the creative process starts with identifying what's the problem. What are we looking for? What's my solution? What's my inspiration? What is forcing me or preparing me to move forward? Number 2, thinking outside the box. I know we live inside the box, but sometimes we need to go outside the box. And with an inspiration that forces us, think. Go beyond your comfort zone. Do something different. Incubation, that's characterized by our thought processes and the refinement of ideas. And then the last part, of course, is the illumination. It's the solution, the finding, the putting everything together in practical ideas to work. So now I'm going to ask Asher Stang to join me on stage and go to the piano. Encouragement to Asher. In case you don't know Asher is a first-year biomedical science psychology double major with a minor in neuroscience and a creative background in musical performance, including piano, guitar, trumpet, improvisation, and composition. All right. So last semester in our applied piano lessons, I introduced this idea of creativity, and we cultivated that four-step process that we just outlined. Her inspiration, the inspiration, performance for the National Future Farmers of America Talent Competition. Asher won the state of Virginia and she represented our state after she won the state FFA competition last spring. Thinking outside the box. So we began lessons in August and with selections that interest and showcased technical strength and musicality, bringing it to our lesson. We determined the improvisation style mirrored minimalist Philip Glass. We studied Philip Glass compositions, we discussed musical style, and now we're at the end of September and we're talking about that 12-bar blues that we just introduced. That's another style that fit Asher really well. Comes to the next lesson and says, I like Pachelbel's canon in D. Okay. We started to share ideas, think about, try this dynamic. Why don't we slow that down? Why don't we speed that up? What's Philip Glass gonna do? What's Honky Tonk Nashville gonna do? So now, we are gonna see the solution. This creativity process yielded this result. Expanded the comfort zone, took risks, infused classical music into country honky-tonk, and this added effort yielded great reward for her. This competition started with more than 200 people. It was narrowed to 30. She made the semifinals, top 15 in the country. All right, everybody, we've arrived at the on-to-go section. As educators, we do have a small yet powerful body of literature from which to move creative studies onto our college campus and into our classrooms. So I want to take a look at a few of these strategies. The first strategy is convergent and divergent. Both terms coined by American psychologist J.P. Guilford in 1956 describes these two complementary cognitive methods. Convergent, frequent standardized test, emphasizes the importance of one right answer, and divergent thinking, coming up with alternate ideas that produce a variety of responses. They work in complement together, and as you see from the chart, there are convergent things that are important, there are divergent things. And they have to be developed in tandem, because we still have to cultivate this idea of convergent thinking, because we still have to teach to the test here at the college level. My education students have to pass the Praxis Music Content Exam. They have to pass the Virginia Communication and Literacy Assessment. So it's still important that I help them develop test-taking strategies in tandem with, all right, but don't do your classrooms like that. You gotta think outside the box. You gotta teach in different manners. So that's the first one. Number 2 is the teach problem-solving methods. How many of you have gone to an escape room? Have you done it? How many of you were successful in getting out of the escape room? How many of you were not successful in getting out of the escape room? Look, all of our hands are down. Oh, no, sorry. She didn't get out. Dr. Tyler is still in that. So just for thought, how can this concept of an escape room foster problem solving? What happens if our assignments are very diverse? If they're portfolios and flowcharts and journals and sketchbooks and reflections and snippets of past experiences? What if we started our class sessions with an activity or a warm-up or an innovation practice or short experiment or something like that? So past, think back, first day of class, January 23rd, 11 o'clock, Monday. Students come in, day 1, I hand them this piece of paper, and it says Beethoven entrance ticket. And my question to them is, what do you know about Beethoven? And so they started to give me salute answers, and I'm like, no, it's got to start with Beethoven. It can't be those. So what do we get for B? Born in Bonn, Germany. Bonn, yeah, Bonn, Germany. V, where do you study? Vienna. I'm putting on, yeah, Vienna, that's the right name. We can't use deaf. We have to use hearing impaired. Right, so they had to take these ideas that they knew a little bit coming into the class about Beethoven, but you gotta put it into this box. It really helped me know what they knew and what they didn't know, because I let them just kind of do it. And I think it was a good exercise. All right, number 3, hands-on learning. Hands-on learning helps instructors recognize and correct mistakes while still in the learning process. It provides students an opportunity to make mistakes, learn through trial and error, reduces the chance of them making the same mistake twice, and leads to increased retention. So this was a picture a couple of Fridays ago of our still drum rehearsal, and this is obviously a picture of the Wind Symphony Orchestra with a beautiful harp at our winter concert. Hands-on learning helps problem solve. Completing lab experiments could be one. Recreating a historical document or an artifact. Write a creative story or poem or essay. Skill development and athletics, that's for my sister back there, and skill development in musical rehearsals. Number 4, let's encourage idea generation, because creative people like to come up with ideas, and brainstorming about topics is an excellent place to start. So how many of you have ever used or done or created a concept map, a mind map, a graphic organizer, a flow chart? So that's a lot of hands in this room. So a concept map is a graphic tool for illustrating, organizing, and representing student knowledge. This particular map about sight singing was created by one of our vocal music education graduates in one of our education classes. Notice that they have concepts. The concepts usually have circles or boxes of some type on them. There's a relationship from the concepts indicated by the connecting lines between the concepts, and there's words on lines which referred to as linking words or linking phrases that specify the relationship between concept A, concept B. That's pretty good. That one got an A, just FYI. That's good. Next, number 5. Utilizing questioning techniques. So we as college professors, I think we do this pretty good. I think we've got this. We make questioning part of our daily exchange. But as an avid researcher, I think it's more important that our students learn what questions to ask and how to ask them rather than finding the right answer. All right? It's not about teaching them just the facts, but helping them understand how to use those facts. Open-ended questions are terrific. Don't offer suggestions for help. It helps the students be self-reliant, not teacher-dependent. Sometimes my students here this past week asked me a question about a test, and I'm like, I don't want to give you the answer. I can't answer that. I need for you to go struggle and figure it out. And then we'll see how we can go on from there. I am an avid fan of Bloom's taxonomy. I use it as the basis of my questioning techniques, and it depends on which of the 6 levels I want my students to explore on that particular day as to what question I tend to ask. The verbs on these lists are extremely valuable resources from an education students because those verbs help them create goals and objectives for their lesson planning. I love the next chart. Very brief explanation. I like how from left to right it goes from low level to high, going from knowledge comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. I like the definitions. I like the key words because those are the verbs that our students use to create those goals and objectives. I like the actions. I like outcomes because that helps them create outcomes and assessments that align. And then there's a list of all the questions. This particular resource is going to be available to you in a Google folder that I'm going to share at the end of the lecture because I really like it that much. All right, number 6 is expand assessment choices. Okay, what do you think when you see that? Is it? Yeah, exactly. Exams cause our students a lot of stress and a lot of panic. And I try to eliminate some of that stress. So I encourage this idea, I call it a build a test. This is going to give my students flexibility and use their knowledge and what they know to help solve the problem. All right, so in this particular test that you can see was due today, yes, Beethoven, there were 2 questions on the test everybody had to answer. They had to answer the thesis question, and they had to answer the conclusion and implication question. But how they got from point A to the end was totally up to them. So take a look. There were 6 questions, and they were 20 points apiece, and so they had to pick 4. First one was a primary source reading about the Heidelberg Testament and Beethoven becoming deaf. There are some questions on there that were conversion and had a right answer, but then there were some that asked them about philosophy and philosophical type things. So it was divergent in its answer. Second one is analyze symphony number 3. Once again, it had some philosophical ideas, and some things had a right answer, and some things asked them, well, how would we use this symphony today? How would Beethoven use it if he was here today? Short answers, they were all convergent. Analysis of a self-selected composition. So it has right and wrong answers, but they got to pick which one of the Beethoven 150 pieces they actually wanted to analyze. So they still had choice. The other 2 were blatant divergent resources. One, to write a musical composition, but talk about it. What is your passion of fear? Beethoven's fear was becoming deafness. And so describe that composition about becoming deaf. It would be in a minor key. Would it be happy? What would it be time signature wise? Would it be loud? Would it be soft? And then describe your composition. The last exercise is 3 different creative choices. So I want to show you some of these. First one is create an artwork. So here are 3 such artworks. The one on the left describes furry leaps. The one in the middle was done by Caroline Gilmore, who's here tonight. It's Wellington's Victory. And the third one was done by Lauren, and Lauren did Misa Solemnis. Next, concert publicity poster advertising the upcoming symphony performance. Next, to write an original poem. All right, so the poetry prompt asks students to write about an event in Beethoven's life from the viewpoint of his piano. Summer, come forward. This is Summer Campbell. She is a senior music major and one of the most creative students that I teach. You're going to recognize her probably as she was SVPA's oral presentation winner at the 2022 Student Scholar Showcase. She did a project entitled Women Composers. Imagine that. And she explored several romantic women composers and then composed her own work and performed it and prayed it on that particular day. And it was really cool. One of the things I really liked about what she found out, these women composers that she looked at happened to be white women. Because in the Romantic era, that's who it was. So she went through and looked at what percentage of composers were black women?
It was like maybe 5%.
Like way low. So now her project is, let me examine them, and now how can I add to that body of literature? All right, enough of that. So I could have gotten Summer to explore her compositions, play circles for you. She could have improvised, she could have played her guitar, she plays trumpet, she plays piano, but it's this point about Beethoven from the viewpoint of his piano I really wanted her to share with you tonight. Summer's going to read for you inaudible.
Inaudible. He began to hesitate, seemingly unsure. He would look at my right side in confusion. Something was off. I don't know what he had against the higher part of me, but he just couldn't seem to understand it. Day in and day out, he would repeatedly hit my right side, harder and yet harder, hoping to gain something, feel something, hear something. I could tell he was holding something in, holding it in so much that he didn't even want to use me as a vehicle to express his feelings. He worked more and more each day, and soon weeks and even months that went by. Even though I saw him more, he didn't visit me as much. I felt a sense of uselessness. Maybe he's having writer's block. Could that be? Maybe. Maybe my keys are too sticky for him. Does he need a new piano? I wish I could speak German as well as he speaks through my keys. Even so, I'm afraid. Would I still know what was going on? He often went unheard, unseen, unable to understand. What happens to me when I am unheard, unseen, and unable to be understood? Inaudible.
Thank you. And strategy number 7, the last strategy, is active learning techniques. Check out this graphic. I love it. It really does sum up active learning in one glance. You're going to notice ideas about reflect in writing. Solve it, relate it, feel it, teach it, question it, doodle it. Caroline's a doodler. Summarize it, compare notes, and self-assessments. We can take these thoughts and combine them with some of the things we already do. Think, pair, share, small group discussions, developing projects, writing minute papers, establishing you teach it opportunities. And as I began working on this project, I really did give a lot of thought to what type of presentation of research I wanted, the organization of the creative ideas, how can I integrate and showcase our students' work. And when speaking with my family and friends, they're gonna laugh, I told them when I'm doing this, God, I just don't want to be boring, right? That when you think lecture, I think just stand up here talk, I just don't want to be boring. And that led me to this diagram. When I see you guys around campus in 2 weeks, and I ask you, what did you remember from tonight's lecture? What are you gonna be able to say? Maybe you'll say, hey, I like that warm-up of the creative words. That carrot clarinet was really cool. Asher Stang is indeed talented and creative. Summer Campbell needs to publish that point. And indeed, we are all musical and creative, and Allison Jablonski rocks, right? Right? So in essence, as you look at this chart, we have heard the words, we have seen the presentation, we have watched the demonstration, seen it evolve in this location, we have participated in this discussion, we have generated ideas, we have participated in musical performance. We're on 70%. Hey, that's pretty good, right? That's a passing grade. Let's see, what is it after 2 weeks you still remember? And so, now what? We want to provide an environment that fosters creativity. And there are a lot of ways to do it. There's not just one way, and I hope you got some ideas that you might could use. Become a role model. With my student teachers that are working right now, become a role model. How can you increase your students' creativity, whether in kindergarten or grade 12? Persistence is rewarding, right? Our students need to experience the reward of that unexpected outcome, that wow, that was cool, the experimentation, the discovery. And in that experimentation, it's okay to make mistakes. Because can you ever remember a time when making a mistake actually resulted in something good? Right? When something fails, students experiment with an alternative way to complete the problem. Their mistakes actually feed their idea bank. In other words, creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which mistake to keep, right? And Maya Angelou, you can't use up creativity because the more you use it, the more you have. I want to thank everybody for attending this evening. I wanted to see if you had any questions for me or maybe Asher or Summer, if there's anything that you wanted to know maybe about their creative process. Anybody? Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have advocated for both memorization and creativity because if you don't have the basis of whatever system you're trying to teach, you can't use it to be creative. So the standardized tests, they might be in the way, but how do you deal with that sort of learning that you have to, the stuff you have to know in order to be able to make
You're doing both, right?
the both?
You're doing both.
Okay.
This particular Beethoven test didn't have question and answer, but my students will tell you when we get to the Romantic era, there's going to be a section that's going to have, you have to do this. It'll have 50 multiple choice type questions that have specific right answers, and some of them are tricky because they'll look at that and you'll say, you have to pick the best answer. Or some of the things I do to make sure they know it, circle all that apply. They hate those, right? Because usually if you get the question, you give them the answer all of the above, they're gonna circle all of the above. That's their go-to. So just don't give them the go-to. Give them every different choice and ask them to circle which ones work. And that really does test whether or not they know the material. But also, I've got to give them an opportunity to think and do something else besides just take that box. And in music ed, Dr. Dean and I, our final exam, we have praxis exams. And they sit there for 120 minutes and take that practice test so that we give them that experience. But I can guarantee everything we do in that class is not, let's keep practicing this test, right?
Right, yeah. Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Yes.
Anyone can answer this, but in the creative process, what do you do to get either yourself or your students over the fear of being incorrect with their creative choice?
I think the more you do it, the better they feel. And you know this because I was going to put this in a presentation, but knew it was going to be too long, so I pulled it out. Remember when you were in music ed class and you and Monica, we did improvisation.
Yeah.
And the very first day, we did like the C thing, and that's all you got. And you had to answer the questions that said, how do you feel about creativity today? I give myself a grade of. How I feel like I did this well, I need to do this better. And then we came back on Thursday, and we had a different activity. And then you still had to do the list. So I kept all the lists. So I could use you as a longitudinal study, right? And say, the very first time she did it, she didn't feel very good about it. By the time she did it 7 or 8 times, she's better, but you can still see she's probably a little nervous about it, right? But yeah, you just keep practicing it and you give them encouragement along the way. And okay, sometimes we make silly mistakes and we laugh, but the door's shut and it's only 7 or 8 of us, right? I would have never put Asher and Campbell and Summer on the spot if I didn't feel like they could do it, right? I wouldn't set them up here, set them up for failure. Good question. Anybody else? So on this particular slide, this QR code, if you want to take a picture, it's going to lead you to both of those Bloom's pictures. The lecture slides, the creativity word list, there were 94 words, by the way. The Beethoven test that I did and the bibliography of, I don't know, 50 or 60 sources that I used to create this lecture from. So, if you want that.
And before we let Dr. Ramsey go this evening, I want to give her a small gift of
Thank you.
appreciation and a plaque that has your title. So, thank you again.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. That's all. Take pictures. Talk. Look, I did it all